Noah picked a book last night. Read something out of it. The story he chose. Pete the cat, Pete's big lunch. It is lunchtime and Pete is ready to eat. What should Pete eat? A sandwich might be nice. Yes, Pete wants a sandwich. Pete opens the fridge. He takes out a loaf of bread. He finds a yummy fish. He adds tomato and mayo. Pete looks at his sandwich. Pretty good, he thinks, but something is missing. He wants to add something sweet. Pete knows what he needs, an apple. Pete loves apples. Pete's sandwich needs something else. Crackers? Every meal needs crackers. They are crunchy and delicious, Pete thinks. He uses a whole box. Pete looks at his sandwich again. It is still too small. I wonder how much food I need to eat, Pete thinks. My stomach feels very empty. Pete adds a pickle, cheese, an egg, hot dogs, a banana, and a can of beans. Then to top it all off, Pete adds ice cream. He can't decide if he wants a scoop of chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry, so he balances all three on top of his sandwich. Pete looks at his sandwich. It is bigger than him. How will I ever eat that, thinks Pete. Maybe I need a ladder or a funnel, or maybe something to squish it down so I can take a bite. I've got it, thinks Pete. He takes out his phone and calls his friends. He asks all of them to come over right away. Everyone goes over to Pete's house. I hope they're hungry, thinks Pete. Hey, Pete, they say. Do you have any snacks? I sure do, he says. Come on in. Everyone takes a piece of the sandwich. There is plenty to go around. They each get the part they like the best. Now there is no more giant sandwich. Sharing is cool, says Pete. And another book. Oh. Again, we will keep reading from Ishavasya Upanishad. We left off at mantra 8, so we will go right into mantra 9. They attain darkness who worship and embrace material science alone, but those who concern themselves with spiritual science alone are plunged into even greater darkness. This mantra recognizes the need for cultivating both the spiritual and material aspects of life. It cautions us against the disastrous results of ignoring either of these branches of knowledge. Materialists believe that nothing exists in the world except matter and its modifications. Chasing material progress, they dismiss notions of spirituality as imagination. They feel that the purpose of life is no more than acquiring possessions, relishing relationships, pursuing delights, and so on. While attempting to squeeze happiness from low-value activities, they feel no solid necessity for adhering to higher values. On the flip side, adherents of spiritual traditions reject materialism as unnecessary. They assert that we are the soul and we must not waste time on bodily pursuits. The body is prone to die one day, so it must not be pampered. Instead, we must accumulate spiritual treasures that will continue into the afterlife. The tussle between materialism and spirituality is not new. Humanity has been embroiled in this debate for millennia. Charvak Muni, a famous Indian philosopher, propagated an extreme form of materialism. He set forth three main tenets, which are not different from today's scientific materialism. The first tenet lays the foundation of his school of thought. As long as you live, enjoy your life. If drinking ghee gives you pleasure, drink it even if you have to take a loan to buy it. Upon death, when your body is cremated, it will turn to ashes. Where is the question of returning to the world again? The same ideology is expressed in modern times by the acronym YOLO, meaning you only live once. The idea conveyed is that we only have one life to live, so why worry about karmic consequences in the afterlife? Why not revel and make merry, since anyway we know of nothing beyond death? Coming back to Charvak, his argument conveniently ignores the existence of a spiritual entity called the Atma, or soul. He assumes the body to be the self. Charvak's hypothesis, however, could be questioned thus. The ingredients that constitute the body do not possess life, then what causes the presence of life in the body? Charvak responds with this logic. In this verse, he explains that betel leaf is green, while powdered betel nut is brown, but when they combine together in the form of pan, betel leaf, and consumed, it confers a reddish hue on the lips. Likewise, says Charvak, the ingredients of the body are devoid of consciousness, but when brought together in the body, they produce life. Thus, consciousness is not the result of the soul or the presence of some non-material principle. The body is a bag of atoms and molecules, and that is all there is. However, Charvak's hypothesis can again be questioned. Insentient substances are lifeless. Even when combined in the body, they cannot create life, as this is fundamentally different from their inherent nature. The Vedas declare the existence of the Atma, which is immortal and eternal. They state that our present life is just one of the countless lives of our soul. We lived before our present birth, and death will be nothing but the soul's departure from its present body. On hearing such arguments, Charvak gets irate and presents his third tenet, very much along the lines of many materialists of today. The composers of the three Vedas are cunning demons, endowed with a corrupted intellect. Charvak claims the writers of the Vedas have created ideas such as Atma and Paramatma, heaven and hell, and virtue and sin to delude people. Interestingly, even today, materialists in India voice similar opinions about the Vedas. In fact, the scientific materialism currently prevalent is also a polished version of Charvak's first two sutras. The underlying assumption in science is that all of creation is a result of material elements and their inherent energy. For example, modern physics concerns itself with only material substances. You may never hear a scientist say, "This law came into existence by the power of God." While propounding its theories, science keeps no space for the existence of any transcendental principle. It conveniently assumes that over time, insentient materials have combined to yield complex life forms. Consciousness arose with the advent of the composite forms, and the continuous evolution of life forms has led to the appearance of human beings, endowed with finer sensibilities and intellect. There's no denying the multitude of ways humankind has benefited from scientific development. Thus, science must be accorded credit for enriching and transforming the quality of our life experience on Earth. Yet from the perspective of knowing the absolute truth, there are some leaps of faith made in science which are being questioned here. The big assumption is that non-conscious particles can combine to produce consciousness. This has never been proved. Nobody has ever combined atoms and molecules to create life. Scientist Thomas Huxley expressed it well. If you were to ask a scientist whether they believe in religion or spirituality, invariably they would say they do not believe. And if you were to ask them, "Do you possess a free will?" they would say, "Yes, we do." Intuitively, we all know we do possess a free will. Yet in the laws of nature known today, there is no scope for free will. Yet all scientists do realize that we do possess the freedom to choose this or that. That vital point Huxley made was that science has no explanation for the existence of free will, Huxley did not, however, notice an even bigger lacuna in the epistemology of science, the inability to explain the origin of awareness in living beings. While we make complex gadgets using sophisticated technology, can we make a gadget that is aware? Humankind has now developed artificial intelligence, but is AI aware of what it does? Of course not. While it uses vector algorithms, etc., to arrive at answers, it does not possess the quality of life, which is consciousness. Albert Szent-Györgyi, Nobel Prize winner in physiology, stated, "In my search for the secret of life, I ended up with atoms and electrons, which have no life at all. Somewhere along the line, life has run out through my fingers. So in my old age, I am now retracing my steps, trying to fight my way back." Apart from the philosophical incompleteness, materialism suffers from another shortcoming. It cannot entirely solve the problem of mental distress and emotional misery. All around us, we see how even most apparently successful people are prey to stress, anxiety, envy, and resentment, so much so that they cannot sleep at night without consuming sedatives. Thus, it becomes clear that external progress alone will not suffice in remedying the problems of life. This explains the first line of the mantra, "They attain darkness who worship and embrace material science alone." Let us now understand the perspective of spiritualists. The word spirituality, or adhyatmatvada, can etymologically be split into adi, completely, plus atma, soul, plus vada, philosophy. It literally means philosophy that is entirely focused on the soul. Spiritualists believe that the body is mortal while the soul is immortal, so we must strive to uplift our soul and not pamper the body. However, some spiritualists take this argument to an extreme. They claim that since the body will perish one day, sole importance should be given to matters of the Atma. Thinking thus, they reject worldly pursuits to the extent of denying the day-to-day bodily requirements, fearing that such activities will pollute their consciousness with worldliness. On the one side, materialists prioritize the external side of life, while ignoring their inner growth. On the other side, spiritualists deny the external world as an illusion and focus exclusively on inner purification. This mantra rejects both these extremes as incorrect. Then there are some spiritualists who accumulate the knowledge of the scriptures but do not care to put it to practice. Their learning, being devoid of realization, leads to pride. Furthermore, on the basis of their bookish knowledge, fanatical theologians engage in unnecessary debates, taking great delight in their victory over novice scholars and the unhappiness they cause. Factually, spiritual learning is not just about putting ideas into our head, but about assimilating them into our heart and implementing them in our actions. Empty knowledge is berated in the Panchatantra. A donkey laden with a load of sandalwood is only aware of its weight and knows nothing about its soothing effect. Likewise, foolish people who read various scriptures but do not put the knowledge to practice are no better than donkeys. There are other spiritualists who prematurely abandon worldly duties, though they remain slaves to their minds and senses. Such hypocrites pretend to be elevated sadhaks and busy themselves in creating a flock of like-minded hypocrites. The Ramcharitmanas describes this phenomenon. In Uttarakhand 7.99.3, a man's wife died or he went bankrupt, so he shaved his head and became a monk. In the age of Kali, such hypocrites with matted hair and long fingernails are acclaimed as austere sages based on external renunciation. Berating such empty theologians and pretentious scholars, the mantra says, "The so-called spiritualists who misuse their Shastra Jnana to bring suffering upon themselves and others attain deeper darkness. In this way, extremes on both sides of the spectrum are derided." For the scholars, let us delve deeper into Charvak's philosophy. Etymologically, charavuka is a person who speaks vak, words, that are charu, liked by people. The Sanskrit dictionary explains, one who speaks words that are liked by people and appeal to the masses is described as charuvak. With the passage of time, charuvak became charvaka or charvak. The Puranas relate a humorous story explaining the origin of Charvak's philosophy. Astonishingly, it was first taught by Deva Guru Brihaspati to the Asura society. Why did the Deva Guru teach such a reductionist viewpoint? Let us see. During the Devasura Sangram, battle between celestials and demons, a stage came when many Asuras perished, tilting the odds of victory in favor of the gods. At this point, Shukracharya, the guru of the demons, decided to intervene. He departed into the forest to perform penance and gain Sanjivani Vidya, with the help of which he would revive the fallen Asuras. When Brihaspati came to know of Shukracharya's plan, he thought, with great difficulty the demons have been felled. If they get revived, it will result in a major calamity for the Devatas. So he preempted the Asura Guru. Deceitfully taking the form of Shukracharya, Brihaspati went in the midst of the remaining Asuras. They thought their teacher had returned and welcomed him with reverence. Then Brihaspati, in the form of Shukracharya, announced, I am back from my penances and have learnt the way to the highest welfare. For a happy life, we must eat, drink, and enjoy. There is no such thing called Atma. The Vedas and other scriptures are all false. Saying this, Brihaspati got the bodies of slain Asuras cremated and left, thus saving the Devas from defeat. When Shukracharya returned and learnt what had happened, he tried his best to remove Brihaspati's teachings from the intellects of the Asuras, but by then it had become firmly established in their consciousness. Avidya also means Vedic rituals. Shankaracharya explains the mantra from this perspective. This interpretation is also valid, so let us try to understand it. As per Shankaracharya's, Vidya is spiritual knowledge, while avidya is Vedic rituals. He then describes the darkness that accrues from them. The result of karmkand, i.e., rituals prescribed in the Vedas, is not self-realization. In Mimamsa Darshan 6.1.1, perform yajnas with the desire to go to the celestial abodes. The fruit of ritualistic practices is the attainment of celestial abodes for a limited time until one's pious merits are depleted. From this perspective, the practice of karmkand, which is devoid of bhakti, will not solve the problem of material bondage. Hence, the Mundaka Upanishad states in 1.2.5, those who make Vedic rituals their primary focus and consider themselves as learned without engaging in spiritual practice are akin to a blind man who shows the way to other blind men. Such people come back in the cycle of birth and death time and again. The Bhagavad Gita also strongly dissuades us from getting entangled in rituals for fruitive rewards. 2.42. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. In conclusion, the fruitive rituals described in the Vedas do not liberate us from Maya. We continue transmigrating in the cycle of life and death. Hence, Shankaracharya opines this is the darkness of material existence that the Ishavasya is talking about. Having cautioned the reader about the harmful effects of the two extremes, rampant materialism and unbalanced spirituality, the Upanishad now explains the need for the proper use of both spiritual and material knowledge. Mantra 10. The practices of Vidya, spiritual science, and Avidya, material science, bestow very different fruits. The enlightened and equipoised saints have explained this in detail. Our inner experience reveals that without spiritual wisdom, material progress does not bestow fulfillment. However, our everyday experience also reveals that given the complexity of the technology for controlling and managing our mind, Albert Einstein, the greatest scientist of the last century, expressed it very accurately. It is easier to denature plutonium than it is to denature the evil spirit of man. Spiritual science addresses this aspect of the human experience. It is that body of knowledge which gives us the tools to purify our mind and intellect. We learn to manage our thoughts, to make them lofty and sublime. This, in turn, helps us lead a noble life. Max Planck, famous quantum physicist, recognized this need for spirituality. In his book, Where is Science Going?, he stated, "There can never be any real opposition between religion and science, for the one is the complement of the other." Every serious and reflective person realizes, I think, that the religious element in his nature must be recognized and cultivated if all the powers of the human soul are to act together in perfect balance and harmony. And indeed, it was not by accident that the greatest thinkers of all ages were deeply religious souls. Second, material science is devoid of values. It places huge power in our hands, but does not teach us how to discriminate between its good or bad use. This is why there is so much apprehension about the misuse of genetic engineering, stem cell technology, AI, and more. The wisdom for their ethical and moral use requires spirituality. In summary, humans need both vidya and avidya in their lives. However, the right use of avidya and vidya is an extremely nuanced science. It must be understood under the guidance of a guru. Iti Shushruma Dhiranam in the mantra emphasizes the need for a guru. It suggests we learn spiritual wisdom from the wise ones. The word dhir used here is very significant. Etymologically, dharana shakti is the ability to retain. Hence, dhir is a person who has developed driti, i.e., ability to retain. In the spiritual context, those who harbor divine knowledge and divine love in the receptacle of their heart are the dharanam. These are the spiritual masters who can teach us. Dhir is used for a guru in the Ramcharitmanas as well. Uttarakhand 7.119.9. This Chaupai uses such beautiful analogies for saints. If Bhagavan Ram is an ocean, then his dear saints are the clouds that carry the waters of divine love to us. If Sri Ram is a sandalwood tree, then his dear devotees are the breeze that bring us the fragrance of his divine grace. For the Guru, Sri Krishna uses two similar words, Jnanina, those having knowledge of the scriptures, and Tattva Darshina, those who have seen the truth, in the Bhagavad Gita, in 4.34. Learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him with reverence and render service unto him. Such an enlightened saint can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. The gurus who explain the science of God realization are very benevolent. The Gopi Geet praises them, saying, "Those who explain the divine pastimes of God are Burida Jana, or most benevolent." In the Indian culture, therefore, the spiritual master who helps us unite with God is accorded high respect. I bow down to the Guru, who is a veritable form of the Supreme Brahman. The Upanishad thus encourages us to find a true Guru, who is most benevolent, and learn from him how to practice spirituality in a balanced manner. Having explained the need for both material and spiritual sciences in our everyday life, the next mantra will reveal the process of achieving this synthesis between these two branches of knowledge and the fruit of such a balanced living. Mantra 11. Those who adopt both vidya and avidya in unison Such expert spiritual seekers navigate the world with the help of material science and reach the eternal abode of God through spiritual science. The Ishavasya continues its reconciliation of opposites. In this mantra, the Upanishad explains the perfect synthesis of both spirituality and materialism. It teaches us how to utilize both vidya and avidya for our benefit. Avidya, i.e. material knowledge, enables us to understand external nature and harness it for the necessities of our body. Vidya, or spiritual knowledge, helps us comprehend our inner nature, the mind, intellect, and ego, and purify it to manifest the divinity of the soul within. Thus, both are relevant and beneficial for successful living. The Mundaka Upanishad explains, both material science and spiritual science are valid branches of human knowledge. Just as a train runs on two tracks, we too must utilize both disciplines. I relate this concept to the bicameral mind theory, in it talking about the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And there's the logic side of the right side, or forgot which is which now, and the kind of more spiritual side. I think it's the right side that's more spiritual, and then the left hemisphere being really logical. Let us examine the life of the Buddha. When he witnessed the defects of human existence, birth, disease, old age, and death, he renounced the world. Subsequently, he relinquished efforts to maintain the body. Engaging in intense austerities in the forest, he ignored all bodily needs to the point that he grew weak. With the onset of hunger and dizziness, meditation expectedly became a formidable challenge. One day, some village women were singing a song as they passed by. The meaning was, tighten the strings of the tanpura, Indian musical instrument, and make them sound sweet, but do not tighten them so much that they break. On hearing this, the Buddha had a profound realization. He thought, this wisdom applies to the body too. We must tighten it through austerities, but not to the extent that the body itself perishes. In his subsequent efforts, the Buddha was mindful of his physical needs for maintenance. He made it one of the core insights in his ideology, which became known as the middle path. Interestingly, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle used almost similar terminology. Advocating the principle of the golden mean, he spoke against both gross avidity and extreme denial. In balancing the material and the spiritual, a caution is worth mentioning. Accept materialism only to the extent that it meets your basic bodily and comfort needs. Else desires will never cease, and you will end up chasing the ever-receding mirage of future happiness. Therefore, be wise and keep material pursuits within reasonable limits. On the other hand, keep progressing spiritually without limit. We can continue increasing it ad infinitum. Through spirituality, we develop equanimity of mind, which improves our inner life and makes our thoughts exalted. The more we develop it, the greater control we will get over anger, greed, desire, and pride. As a result, we become more effective in our worldly duties as well. Let us now take a deeper dive into the fruits of cultivating spiritual wisdom. Spirituality helps develop good values and beliefs. As we go through life, we are presented with numerous options and are required to make choices. In this ethical dilemma, what is my duty? In the present situation, what should I prioritize and why? What should I make as the goal of my life? If we do not have a system of beliefs to reference, making these choices can become overwhelming and impossible. Sacred books of spirituality, such as the Upanishads, offer us divine wisdom for our personal structure of beliefs. They reveal the values that great saints successfully practiced. In this way, they clarify our path for moving ahead in life. Spirituality helps us see the bigger picture. The demands of our daily routines entangle us in mundane tasks. We are obliged to run from morning till night to earn money. We are required to take care of our family. But while fulfilling these worldly necessities, we also have a need for a higher fulfillment, beyond the mundane. Spiritual wisdom helps us connect with elevated ideas and noble concepts. I'm gonna get it. There she is. Spirituality helps us become a better person. Deep within, we all aspire to become a better version of ourselves. Yet self-transformation does not come easy. We struggle with negative thoughts and detrimental habits. In this situation, a good spiritual belief system hands us the tools and practices required for improving ourselves. It also strengthens our commitment to practicing self-discipline in life. Consequently, our journey of inner purification speeds up. It is a pity that despite all these benefits, spirituality is looked down upon in academic circles. To talk about the soul and God in corporate boardroom discussions or scientific interactions is considered old-fashioned. In India, in the name of secularism, spirituality has been eliminated from education. Students go through their entire school and college life without learning about spirituality. Spirituality helps us attain the supreme goal of life. Without learning and practicing it, we will keep rotating in the cycle of life and death in this material realm. As Shankaracharya said in Bhaja Govindam, we are born, then one day we die, and then hang upside down in a mother's womb. This cycle has repeated itself innumerable times in the past and will continue until we attain the supreme realization. Ultimately, the purpose of our human life is God realization. Only then can we get the true bliss that our soul has been thirsting for since eternity. From this perspective, spirituality is like the one, while everything else is like zeros. With one in the lead, every zero behind it adds value. Without it, life remains zero, futile and purposeless. Amrit Mashnuta. This word informs us that vidya will bestow eternal life. When we learn spiritual science and put it to practice, our mind will get purified. This then attracts divine grace and leads to God realization. Thus, the Rig Veda states, without spiritual knowledge, it is impossible to get liberated from the bondage of Maya. The Bhagavad Gita states in 4.38, in the entire world, there is nothing as beneficial and purifying as spiritual knowledge. Through this mantra, we have learnt the syncretic approach between material and spiritual sciences. We have also learnt the need for balancing both avidya and vidya in our life to achieve health, happiness, and spiritual fulfillment. For the scholars, why does the Ishavasya refer to spiritual science alone as vidya? Can other branches of knowledge also be called by the same name, e.g. the vidya of music or the vidya of dance? The answer to this question requires comprehending the Vedic definition of vidya. The root vit means knowledge imbued with experience. Samvit means jagrati, or knowledge that leads to awakening. Thus, knowledge which awakens the soul from its ignorance and leads to appreciation of divine principles can be termed as vidya. The Vishnu Puran provides a beautiful explanation in 1.19.41. That alone is karma, which does not entangle us in bondage. That alone is vidya, which frees us from the bondage of Maya. Vidya is hence the spiritual science that will result in mrityam, thirtra, i.e. freedom from death. Having examined the topic of vidya and avidya, the Upanishad next does the same analysis for sambudhi and asambudhi. In the process, we get to know where we should focus our devotion and where we should not. Mantra 12. Those who worship originated beings attain darkness. However, those who worship the eternal Lord with pride and arrogance end up in far greater darkness. The concepts of vidya and avidya were discussed in the previous triad of mantras from 9 to 11. With this 12th mantra begins a second triad that delves into the concepts of sambudhi and asambudhi. Let us start the discussion by understanding the terms that have been employed herein. Upasana comes from the root asana, which implies to sit. The prefix upa means near, hence upasana means to go and sit close. From a spiritual perspective, upasana implies to take your mind to something. We souls can either take our mind to God or to His created world. The mantra refers to these two realms by the terms sambudhi and asambudhi. First, we will understand their meaning, and then the idea of the mantra will be clear. Sambudhi implies svatantra samvava, meaning of independent origin. God alone is sambudhi, since He is the cause of all causes. He does not owe His origin to any other entity. Asambudhi means not of independent origin. All living beings and objects in this material world are asambudhi. They have come into existence from God, who is the original source of everything. Worship of asambudhi, asambudhi upasana, means to attach the mind to objects or living beings of the world. Included in this are celestial gods, ancestors, humans, ghosts, and material objects. The mantra starts by saying asambudhi upasana will result in darkness. Why is this so? As per the scriptures, our destination in the afterlife is decided by the object to which our mind is attached at the time of death. The Puranas relate the story of Bharat Maharaj. Though he was a powerful king, he renounced his kingdom and went into the forest to practice sadhana. All was going well until one day he saw a newly born baby deer floating in the river. Moved by pity, he rescued the fawn and brought it to his hut. He began tending to it with great affection, but in the process his mind came away from spiritual contemplation and got absorbed in the deer. In his final moments, when Bharat was dying, the only thoughts in his mind were, "How is the deer? What will happen to it after I leave?" Consequently, in his next life, Bharat was born as a deer. The story illustrates the principle enunciated in the Bhagavad Gita. 8.6. Whatever one remembers upon giving up the body at the time of death, one attains that state, always absorbed in such contemplation. Let us understand the principle through the analogy of a father living in a small village with 4 daughters. He marries his first daughter to a brilliant lad who clears the Indian Administrative Services IAS exam and becomes a government officer. People call the officer a sahib, i.e. sir, and his wife is addressed as mem sahib, i.e. madam. The second daughter gets married to an office clerk. People call him babu, while his wife gets the epithet babuan, terminology used in Uttar Pradesh. The third is wedded to a drunkard who later becomes impoverished. He is now known as Bhikari, i.e. beggar, while people speak of his wife as Bhikarin, i.e. beggar lady. The fourth daughter gets wedded to a saint. He becomes the guru of a large congregation, and his wife is known as Guru Ma. Observe the huge difference in designations amongst the 4 daughters, though they all had the same father. Like the daughters in the above example is our mind, and like their husbands are the personalities to whom we attach our mind. This can also be compared to a train with an engine and carriages. Wherever the engine goes, the carriages follow. The Bhagavad Gita again explains, 9.25, worshippers of the Devatas take birth amongst them. Worshippers of the ancestors go to their abode. Worshippers of ghosts take birth amongst disembodied beings, and my devotees come to me alone. Let us now individually look at the different kinds of asambudhi upasana. Worship of the celestials. These are the devatas such as Indra, Varun, Kuber, Agni, Vayu, and so on. They live in the higher planes of existence within this material world called Swarg. The devatas are not God, they are souls like us. They occupy specific posts in the administration of the world. Some worship the celestial gods for material rewards. We must remember that these devatas cannot grant either liberation from material bondage or God realization. Hence, the ultimate goal of the soul is not achieved. At best, the worshipper of the Devatas may go to the celestial abodes after death. This is only for a finite amount of time, and then one has to return to the earth. In Ramcharitmanas Uttarakhand 7.43.1, even the attainment of the joys of heaven is for a brief while, and then misery awaits. Worship of ancestors, those who live as per Varnashrama Dharma, discharging their duties with diligence and faith, but are unable to conquer their attachments, go to Pitri Lok, the abode of the ancestors, on the strength of their karmas. Their attachment continues towards past family and clan, whom they had served dutifully in the previous life. Some appease their family ancestors to benefit from their energies and gain desired results. These ancestors are less powerful than the celestial gods. When propitiated by Karmkand, they deploy their energies to bestow material rewards. However, taking aid of such ancestors results in both sides further strengthening their attachment based on material identity, which becomes a roadblock in spiritual upliftment. Worship of humans. Living in the world, we become attached to family members, relatives, friends, and others. The attachment that we harbor towards them for the sake of our pleasure is the worship of humans. In our infatuation, we forget that all worldly relationships are temporary, and everyone will leave one day. Shankaracharya puts them in a perspective in his poem Bhaja Govindam in verse 8. Who is your spouse? Who is your child? Strange are the ways of the world, O soul. Think who you are and where you have come from. O brother, contemplate over these truths. We can compare relationships on earth to bonds forged in a train journey. When a fellow passenger's station arrives, they have to deboard, and we must now continue on our own. Similarly, we form ephemeral relationships in every life that end with death. Worship of ghosts and spirits. Some persons who are in tamasic consciousness misuse Tantra to invoke disembodied beings and extract favors from them. They either gain control over spirits themselves or take refuge of a spirit worshipper. They do not realize that the worship of ghosts and spirits has disastrous consequences. As per the law of karma, such worshippers become indebted to spirits and reincarnate as one of them. Further, those who frequent such spirit worshippers also end up in a hellish birth. These are the major categories of Asambudhi. We have seen how worship of Asambudhi keeps us in the samsara of repeated birth and death. From this perspective, the first line of the mantra says, Andam Tama Pravashanti. It results in darkness. Now let us come to the second line of this mantra. Worship of Sambudhi, Sambudhi Upasana, means to take your mind to God. This is devotion to God, His names, forms, virtues, pastimes, abodes, and saints. It purifies our mind and unites the soul with the Supreme. If our mind is attached to God at death, His names, forms, virtues, pastimes, abodes, and saints, we shall attain Him. Hence, the fruit of Sambudhi Upasana, i.e., worship of the Supreme, is God realization. In conclusion, to achieve the supreme goal, we should worship Sambudhi alone and no one else. A question may be asked at this point. If we do not worship the Devatas and ancestors, will they become upset and will it be considered a sin? The scriptures tell us not to worry. Worship of God takes care of everything. Consider the analogy of a tree with its roots, leaves, fruit, and flowers. You do not have to water every leaf. Simply irrigate the root of the tree and the water will naturally reach all its parts. Likewise, the Skanda Puran states, simply worship Narayan, Lord of the Devas, who is adorned with the conch, disc, and mace, and is all-pervading. In his worship, the Devas will automatically be worshipped. The conclusion is that we must only worship Sambudhi. But look at the surprise. This mantra declares, they enter into an even greater darkness who worship Sambudhi. What could be the reason for this contradiction? Let us find out. When materially conditioned souls begin engaging in bhakti, the flaws of egotism, hypocrisy, jealousy, and the like do not immediately go away. Devotion is not a sudden leap from sinner to saint. It is a journey that gradually takes us from impiety to holiness. Thus, the initial stage of bhakti is called anarth nivriti, i.e., the phase when the defects are gradually falling away. In this stage of the journey, the devotee must be very careful to keep weeding out impurities from their heart. For example, when one plants paddy, wild grass also begins to grow with it. Ironically, these weeds grow even faster than the grain. Thus, a diligent farmer carefully plucks out the wild plants, which would otherwise outgrow the rice, choking it out. Unfortunately, some sadhaks are negligent about the impurities within. They do not exercise care to weed out insincerity, pride, and hypocrisy from their heart. Contaminations then begin to dominate their consciousness until ulterior motives override the original intention of devotion. Derailed from real bhakti, such aspirants start using devotion as a way to impress others and garner praise for themselves. Desiring to hear their own glories, they make a show of their bhakti with hypocrisy and ostentation. While appearing to be siddhas externally, their heart remains filled with worldliness. The objective of pleasing God and Guru no longer remains. Instead, they aim to please themselves. Warning us of self-styled devotees in Kali Yuga, the Ramcharitmana states in Uttarakhand 7.97.4, in the age of Kali, hypocrites with matted hair and long fingernails will be regarded as holy men of repute. This kind of utilization of sambudhi for self-gratification is even more dangerous than the selfish use of asambudhi. Thus, while the first line of this mantra warns us about attaching the mind to the world, the second line cautions us about engaging in false devotion to God. This mantra explains the dangers in the worship of the world and also in the incorrect worship of God. The Upanishad now explains the end result of worshiping the world and how it is different from the end result of worshiping God. Mantra 13. One result is obtained by worshiping the Supreme, who is the origin of all. A very different outcome accrues by worshiping created beings. This we have understood by listening to the true gurus. The previous mantra warned against attaching the mind to the world. Does this mean we should fear the world and run away from it? Quite the contrary. Since God pervades every atom of creation, the world itself is not inauspicious, nor can it be the reason for our sorrows. The error we make is in harboring the wrong attitude towards the world. Instead of utilizing it for a higher purpose, we try to enjoy it for fleeting delights. The Sanskrit words upayog, to utilize, and upabhag, to enjoy, explain this difference perfectly. Consider the following example. A village in rural India had no wells, so the villagers would fetch water from the river a kilometer away. They approached a philanthropist with their problem, who constructed a well near their homes. All was fine for a while until one of the villagers fell into the well and drowned. The other villagers accused the philanthropist. "It is all your fault. If you had not built the well, the poor fellow would not have died." "The fault is not mine, but yours," responded the benevolent man. "I built the well as a favor for you to utilize. If one of you was careless and fell down, it is not my fault but yours." Like the village well is the world God has made for the evolution of the souls. Instead of its upayog for a higher purpose, we are trying to do its upabhag for sensual enjoyment. And when it results in misery, we blame external things. However, in this very world, the great saints also lived, and they were perfectly blissful. In fact, they saw the presence of the divine in all things. This means that the reason for our unhappiness is not the external world, but the inner world within our mind. It is filled with desire, anger, and greed. This is why the Maitreya Upanishad states, Chitmeva hi sansara tat pratyatnena sadhyayat. The bondage you experience is because of the world within you. This inner world is the one you must strive to purify. We create the inner world with our mind, which produces our perceptions of happiness and distress. This mind is so important that both bondage and liberation are dependent on our mind. The Panchadashi says, the mind is the cause of bondage, and the mind is the cause of liberation. As gardeners of the mind, we must carefully tend to it and make it bloom with sublime thoughts and noble emotions. How to purify the mind? It is in the factory of the mind that our thoughts are produced. Motivational speakers worldwide urge people to improve the quality of their thoughts. These messages are nice to listen to, but the problem arises in their implementation. Unless the mind gets purified, it cannot generate noble thoughts. So how can we clean our mind? On this point, personality development coaches do not have an answer. Actually, the simple, straightforward solution is what the mantra teaches. Sambhuti Upasana, i.e., devotion to God. The Lord is all pure, and when we attach our mind to Him, the mind too becomes purified. The process is explained in the Bhagavad Gita, 14.26. Those who serve me with unalloyed devotion rise above the three modes of material nature and come to the level of the Brahman. Presently, our mind is under the influence of the three modes of Maya, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, while God is transcendental to them. By devoting ourselves to the Lord, our mind will also be raised to the transcendental platform. In this way, Sambhuti Upasana purifies our mind and takes us closer to Him. Ultimately, one day, the mind becomes fully surrendered to God, and the state of Mamakam Sharanam Vraja is reached. This is the state of complete Sharanagati, at which point the divine grace of the Lord intervenes and one achieves God realization. This is the divine outcome the mantra refers to. Ananya Bhakti. Is devotion to God something we are learning about for the first time? Most likely not. If you have the spiritual thirst to read the Ishavasya, it is highly likely that you have strong spiritual sanskaras. It is also likely that you have engaged in devotion in past lives as well, and this has resulted in your present quest for God. So we did engage in Sambhuti Upasana in many lifetimes, and yet we did not obtain the divine result. This was because of one mistake. In our devotion to the Lord, we were not ananya. What does this mean? We attached our mind partially to God, but also allowed it to cling to the world. And the scriptures say that this kind of equivocal devotion will not do. The Ramcharitmanas states, in Uttarakhand 7.48.3, the verse explains that if you wash a cloth and also keep throwing ghee on it, the cloth will never become clean. Likewise, if you do bhakti for the Lord and also keep worldly attachments, the mind will not be purified. The world, including its personalities and things, is under the realm of the three gunas. Attaching the mind to it will keep our mind in the three gunas. In this scenario, devotion to the Lord will purify the mind, while love for the world will make it unclean again. This is why the scriptures emphasize the condition of ananyata. The word comes from the roots na, meaning no, and anya, meaning other. So ananya bhakti means that our love must be exclusively for God. The Srimad Bhagavatam states, you must surrender to the Supreme alone, and then by His grace, you will go beyond fear and duality. 11.12.15. The Taittiriya, Upanishad emphasizes this point in no uncertain words. 2.7.1. If there is even a hair's breadth of gap in the mind's attachment to God, fear of rebirth will remain. Hence, the Ishavasya Upanishad urges us to understand that love for the world will bestow a very different outcome than love for God. It will keep our mind impure and prevent us from achieving the supreme realization. The second line of the mantra again brings in the concept of the guru. In mantra 10, the word dear was explained as referring to a realized guru. Here in mantra 13, the guru tattva is once again emphasized. The Ishopanishad is again encouraging us to learn the deep secrets of spirituality from a guru. Many Upanishads have reiterated this principle in various places. For example, the Chandogya Upanishad states in 6.14.2, only through a guru can you understand the Vedas. So let us go deeper into the guru tattva. Why we need a guru? By itself, our intellect is incapable of knowing the absolute truth. As long as we are under Maya, our intellect is afflicted by 5 defects. These are 1. Raga. It is the attachment of our mind to objects and persons which has distorted our understanding. 2. Dvesh. This is the harboring of bitterness and resentment. The intellect again gets distorted by it. 3. Asmita. This refers to the ego. It is our false sense of self-identity arising from identification with our possessions, designations, and so on. 4. Abhinivesh. The idea of death makes us paranoid since we do not realize our soul is eternal. The apprehension of ceasing to exist forever naturally affects our values and perceptions. 5. Avidya. This is the nescience due to which we have forgotten our divine nature as Atma. Instead, we look upon ourselves as the body made of matter. These 5 afflictions warp our intellect under Maya, which is why all the Vedic scriptures declare in unison that divine knowledge must be received from a guru. And then in verse 11.22.10, the Srimad Bhagavatam explains that we cannot acquire transcendental knowledge merely by our intellect, which is covered by nescience since endless lifetimes. Thus, we need a guru who knows the absolute truth. The same methodology for knowledge is enunciated in the Panchadashi 1.2. Serve the guru with a pure mind, giving up doubts. He will then bring you great happiness by bestowing scriptural knowledge and discrimination. An interesting confirmation of the need for a guru comes from the divine Leelas of Bhagavan Ram. During his descension on earth, he went to Guru Vasishtha for knowledge. As God, he was omniscient. He did not need a guru's support for acquiring knowledge, yet he wished to establish a precedent for us to emulate. To teach us that we need the guidance of a guru, Lord Ram himself received instruction at the feet of a guru. Likewise, Sri Krishna also accepted a guru. He went to Sandipani Muni's Gurukul in Ujjain, and there he learnt 64 sciences in 64 days. How did he complete his education so quickly? The reason was that he did not actually require any study. He was merely enacting a pastime that would set an example for humanity. Leaving no doubt regarding the necessity for a guru, Shankaracharya states, unless one takes shelter of a guru, one cannot attain salvation. Hence, surrender to a guru, without whom you cannot achieve perfection. Similarly, Saint Kabir says, for those who say they do not need a guru because God is in the forest and elsewhere, Saint Kabir says that such people are hypocrites and they are always disappointed. When we exert the intellect to grasp the guru's spiritual knowledge, we break free of our notions of sensual enjoyment and are instead adorned with the attitude of making the right and judicious use of asambuddhi. This mantra explained that worshiping God and worshiping the world bestow vastly different end results. The next mantra explains that we must reject neither of these realms. Instead, learn to cultivate the proper mindset towards each. Then both these spheres add specific value to our life and help us attain the supreme destination. Mantra 14. Learn to simultaneously engage in devotion to the eternal God while judiciously using the temporary world. The proper use of the world will help you cross over the material realm of death. while devotion to the Supreme will bestow the bliss of the eternal realm. This mantra uses the word vinasham, meaning destructible, for the world, while the previous two mantras had used the word asambudhi for the same. Vinasham is indeed a fitting appellation for worldly things. They have come into existence and they will perish one day. Birth and death go hand in hand. The Bhagavad Gita sums it up very well. 2.16. That which always existed will never cease to be, but that which got created at a point of time will surely perish one day. Creation and destruction come in pairs. Like we call the world creation, we can just as well call it destruction. In conclusion, Asambudhi and Vinasham refer to the same material realm. This mantra has chosen to employ the word Vinasham to emphasize temporariness. Previously, the use of Asambudhi emphasized things have come into being, but it did not convey that they will perish. Only a rare scholar realizes the destructible side of Asambudhi. Thus, for the desired impact, the mantra says Vinasham. The message is that all relationships and possessions in the world are temporary. Seeing them as destructible, we should not get attached. As was explained in the previous mantra too, consider the following example. Let us say you go for a weekend vacation to a tourist place. You stay in a hotel room. Now, you do not bother if the curtains are not to your liking. Instead, you think, it is only a matter of 2 days, and then I will be on my way. Let me tolerate the room for what it is and focus on enjoying my vacation. Similarly, saints remind us that the world is a temporary abode. Jagadguru Kripaluji Maharaj states in his composition Radha Govind Geet, live in the world as a traveler would live in a hotel. Rather than accumulating treasures here, which we will leave behind at death, we should prioritize divine treasures that we will take along with us. Thinking in this manner, we should learn the proper use of things with a detached mind. At this point, a question is asked, if we are not attached to our family and relatives, how will we do our duty towards them? Well, the fact is that duty can be perfectly done when we are unattached. It is the clinging of our mind that creates all the stress and distress within us. Let me explain from a personal story. Once a middle-aged lady came to me and said, I have too much anxiety. I asked her, what is your anxiety about? Your children? Yes, she responded. How did you know? I explained that having been a spiritual counselor for 4 decades, I was aware of the most common reason for anxiety in people of her age group. Then I asked her what her profession was. She replied, I am a teacher. This year I was recognized for excellence in teaching and conferred an award. I then explained to her, you take care of a whole class of students with excellence and competence, but it does not give you anxiety. While at home you have only 2 to 3 children, but taking care of them makes you anxious. This reveals the reason for your anxiety is attachment to your children. Now learn to simply do your duty towards them with detachment as you do for your students. This will prevent atrophy of the mind when it clings to material personalities. This is the wisdom we can infer from the mantra. Neither run away from family and friends, nor be infatuated with them. Learn to handle relationships with detachment, and they will become much smoother. We will become happier and more effective in the world. Consider another example of a nurse in a hospital. She does her duty towards the patients. She is diligent and sincere, but even while taking care of them, her mind is detached. If a patient dies, she does not lament. If a child is born, she does not rejoice. She simply performs her duty. The Upanishad encourages us to work in the same manner by making judicious use of the world. The works of the world will go on, but we will not be overwhelmed by anxiety, fear, apprehension, and stress. This will assist us in getting detached from the world, and we will cross over the material realm. However, detachment alone does not suffice in attaining the supreme goal. It merely means that our running in the wrong direction has stopped. Consider the following example. Suppose you begin driving south from Indore in central India. A passerby asks you at a crossing, Sir, where are you headed to? To Delhi, you respond. In that case, you are headed in the wrong direction, he informs. Delhi is to the north, and this road is going to Chennai in the south. On hearing the passerby, you stop your car, but merely stopping does not mean you have arrived in Delhi. It simply means your movement in the wrong direction has ceased. Now you need to find the right road to Delhi, and then proceed on it. Only then will you arrive at your destination. Likewise, we want the bliss of the soul and are looking for it in the world. The Upanishad instructs us that loving the world will not bestow this fruit, so we become detached. But that is not enough. We must now find out how to attach the mind to God, implement the instruction. Then we will attain divine bliss we seek. Hence the mantra states that to reach our supreme destination, we must do Sambudhi Upasana. The Ramcharitmanas explains the same. Uttarakhand 7.121.10, just as fire cannot manifest from ice, likewise, until we longingly surrender to Bhagavan Ram, we cannot attain eternal bliss. This present mantra of the Ishopanishad concludes with the same instruction. Sambhutya mritimashnoot. Devotion to the Supreme will bestow the bliss of the eternal realm. In this way, Mantra 14 gives us two tasks. 1, make judicious use of the world, and 2, love God with your mind. Both these tasks must be done concurrently. This means that while working in the world, we must also keep our mind in God. Is this possible? Yes, it can be achieved by practicing the principle of Karma Yoga, the technique of Karma Yoga. To understand what this technique is, we must first appreciate yoga. Nowadays, yoga has become a buzzword in the West. Yoga studios have mushroomed everywhere around the world. It is very heartening to see India's ancient science become so popular. However, most yoga practitioners have adopted it for good health, as a beauty aid, or for weight loss. That is all very well, but they are unaware of the spiritual depth of the science of yoga. The word yog comes from the root yuj, which means to unite. Hence, yoga is the state of union. For example, in Ayurveda, when two medicines are combined, it is called yoga. In the spiritual context, yoga refers to the linking of the individual soul with the supreme soul. Thus, the ultimate goal of the yogic system is to connect with God. The Garud Puran states, the union of the individual consciousness with the supreme consciousness is called yoga. This happens when our mind is absorbed in the supreme, and if we do yoga along with our karma, it becomes karma yoga. This was the message of Sri Krishna. Always remember me, and also do your duty of fighting the war. Bhagavad Gita 8.7. Hence, karma yoga literally means 1, keep your mind in God, yoga, and 2, do your worldly works, karma, with your body. In karma yoga, doing works is nothing new. Literally everyone performs worldly duties. The problem is that our mind does not stay in yoga. We harbor a variety of emotions such as stress, fear, grief, frustration, and so on. To become a karma yogi, we must change this. Keep the mind yoked to the Supreme and also do our work. In simple parlance, this means mind in God, body in the world. Again, people do remember God for a little time, but then they forget him and become engrossed in their worldly duties. Karma yoga is the state where the mind continues to remain in the Supreme at all times. How to remember God all the time? Presently, we are aware of ourselves, I am. Throughout the day, we perceive, I am happy, I am sad, I am hungry, I am full, and so on, but we fail to realize God is also with me. In fact, the Supreme always accompanies us wherever we go. The Brahma Upanishad states, there is one God. He hides in the heart of all beings. Verse 16. We must now add this perception to our consciousness. I am not alone. My Lord is always with me as my witness and my protector. This will come by practicing to feel the presence of God with us at all times. For example, when you arrive at the office, before starting your work, think, Sri Krishna is in front of me. He is watching me. I must do all my works for his pleasure. Then every work we perform will become an offering to him. Thus, in Karma Yoga, we do not divide our activities, thinking, this work is for me and this is for my Lord. Instead, since the mind is always absorbed in God, every activity becomes an offering at the altar of the Supreme. And the consequence of the mind's loving remembrance of the Lord is that one attains the eternal realm. For the scholars, the first mantra of the Ishavasya declared that the world is pervaded by God. This established beyond doubt that the world is not mithya. Does this mean that, like God, the world is also satya? No. If material creation was satya, then as per the Bhagavad Gita's statement, that which is satya never ceases to exist. 2.16. The sat world would then have continued to exist forever. Now we know very well that there will be pralaya, and creation will cease one day. This means the world is a sat, meaning temporary. Likewise, everything in this world is also temporary, and hence the epithet vinasham applies to it. Having explained the art of karma yoga, which is essentially karma plus bhakti, the Upanishad now goes even deeper into bhakti. The following mantra prays for a vision of the personal form of God, which is covered by effulgent light. In this way, it expresses preference of worship of the personal form of God over the formless absolute. Mantra 15. O absolute truth, who are the nourisher of devotional rasas, your divine face is covered by a golden effulgence. Desirous of following real dharma, which is devotion to you, I pray that you remove the veil of radiance that covers your personality so that I may behold the vision of your divine form. This mantra mentions Satya Dharma. Let us understand this phrase first. The Vedic scriptures strongly urge humans to follow Dharma. They go to the extent of stating that without Dharma, humans are no different from animals. The Hitopadesh states in verse 25, eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating, these activities are common to humans and animals alike. Special to humans is the ability to follow Dharma. Without it, they are not unlike animals. Manu, the ancient lawmaker, said, if Dharma is destroyed, then humanity will be destroyed. If Dharma is followed, then humanity will be protected. The word Dharma comes from the root word driya, which means dharan, karain, yogya, or that which is worthy of adopting and upholding. It includes the actions, values, beliefs, and duties that are appropriate for us. In Hinduism, Dharma is divided into two primary categories, material duties and spiritual duties. Both are essential for a balanced and harmonious life as they serve different purposes. Material duties, apara dharma, this relates to our worldly responsibilities. When we identify ourselves with the body, we have obligation towards our family, society, and nation. Performing these duties is essential for social harmony and order, but they do not suffice for achieving God realization. Since apara dharma is based on bodily designations, which are transient, it can also be called asat dharma, or impermanent duties. Spiritual duty, para dharma. This is our duty towards the Creator, which is to love and serve Him. It is the highest and ultimate duty of the soul. The Srimad Bhagavatam emphasizes 1.2.6, the highest dharma for human beings is bhakti to the Supreme Divine Personality. Such bhakti should be selfless and uninterrupted, for only then will one's soul be satiated. The Srimad Bhagavatam again says, on following the principles of Dharma, if the hankering to hear blissful loving pastimes of the Creator of the world does not arise in the heart, then such religious observances are mere exertion. 1.2.8. The clear import is that the supreme goal of Dharma is to have ever-increasing bhakti towards God's names, forms, virtues, pastimes, abodes, and saints. It is also called Satya Dharma, or permanent duty. Here, the meaning of the word Satya comes from the root sat, which means eternal. Devotional prayer. The Ishavasya Upanishad mantra now expresses a fervent prayer. It supplicates God for revealing a vision of his divine form. The word mukham refers to God's radiant face. If, as the Jnanis claim, God were only nirgun, nirvisheth, shesh, nirakar, without qualities, attributes, form, then would he have a face? Why would the mantra teach us ever-increasing hankering for a vision of God's radiant face? It connotes that the personal form of God is the most prized sight for a jiva to behold. It appears as if the devotee has drowned in the mellows of devotion and is earnestly beseeching to behold God's divine form adorned with a gentle smile. The devotee here says, Hiranmayana Petrena, meaning, O God, who have shrouded yourself in a veil of light, we are unable to see your divine form, just as an object in a golden plate is rendered invisible by its sheen and glimmer. Here, by means of this allegory, a great philosophical truth is revealed to us. The divine vision of God's personal form is preferred over the splendid vision of his effulgent Brahma Jyoti. Regarding the Brahma Jyoti, the Chaitanya Charitamrita shares the same spiritual insight in Madhya Lila 20.159. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that when we see the sun with our human eyes, we simply perceive its effulgence, but cannot see the details of its abode. Likewise, with Brahma Jyoti, being worshipped by the Jnanis is nothing but the bodily glow of the Supreme Brahman. Pushan. In the mantra, the devotee calls God as Pushan. This Vedic word is a very intriguing name for God. It refers to one who is full of nourishing rasa, the transcendental mellows of bliss. Thus, the Vedas also refer to God as rasa. Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7.1, that supreme being is the form of rasa. Do note that this mantra does not say God is full of rasa. It states that he is rasa himself. The same mantra of the Taittiriya Upanishad continues to say, Rasam hayavayam labdhafanadi bhavati. By attaining God, the soul becomes rasamaya, blissful. Rasiks are devotees who relish the divine rasa of God. Since he imparts them such nectar, he is called Pushan. Nourished with an array of devotional sentiments, the soul then lovingly serves God. Such devotional service is satisfying to the Lord. Thus the name Pushan applies to him also, as the one who gets nourished by the soul's love. The Rasik saints, in their loving manner, refer to this Pushan Brahman as Rasik Shrimani, crest jewel of Rasiks. Madhura Dipati, the Lord of all sweetness, Rasaraj, the king of rasa, and so on. In summary, this Veda mantra instructs us to go beyond God's effulgent Brahma Jyoti aspect. It inspires us to increase our thirst for beholding his rasamaya form. It guides us to desire a vision of his radiant face endowed with a gentle smile that is full of sweetness. Doing so will give the highest fulfillment to our soul. For the scholars, the mantra conveys that our Satya Dharma is bhakti, loving devotion to God. Only by bhakti can one behold a vision of the supreme Drishyaya. Asat Dharma is insufficient for getting darshan of God. Leaving no doubt in the matter, the Bhagavad Gita states in verse 11.54, O Arjun, by unalloyed devotion alone can I be known as I am, standing before you. Thereby, on receiving my divine vision, O scorcher of foes, one can enter into union with me. There is much confusion regarding true Dharma. Even in the congregation of holy people, differing perspectives are presented. Some hold tapasya, austerities, to be the highest Dharma. Others consider donation, as the supreme activity. Then there are those who espouse the virtues of parapakar, altruism, while others vote for vrata, fasting. Some hold pujapath, ritualistic worship, as the highest, and yet others promote the performance of yajnas, fire sacrifices, as the highest. Some are proponents of yam niyam, adherence to do's and don'ts from the scriptures. While all these are good activities and pious deeds, without bhakti, they do not suffice for attaining God. The paradharma, satya dharma, highest dharma, or true dharma is bhakti to the supreme divine personality. Let us see what the scriptures say in this regard. The Srimad Bhagavatam states, verse 11.14.22, Dharma that is conjoined with truth and mercy is considered the highest material dharma. Tapasya endowed with knowledge is considered the highest austerity. But without devotion to me, even such lofty dharma and tapasya cannot purify the consciousness of the jiva. And in verse 2.2.3, in the Mundaka Upanishad, take the bow of Upanishadic wisdom, or the bow of Upanishadic wisdom. On this great weapon, place the arrow of bhakti. Let bhav be the razor edge of the arrow. Then go and hunt for the supreme Brahman. The Svetashvatar Upanishad states, those who are engaged in bhakti to the supreme and maintain a similar bhav towards their guru, to such great souls the import of the Vedas is directly revealed in their heart by the grace of God. Sri Krishna affirms the same in the Bhagavad Gita, verse 11.53. Neither by the study of the Vedas nor by penance, charity, or fire sacrifices can I be seen as you have seen me. The Bhagavad Gita again states in 8.22, the Supreme Divine Personality is greater than all that exists. Although he is all-pervading and all living beings are situated in him, yet he can be known only through devotion. In reality, what to say of God realization? Even the purification of one's heart is not possible without bhakti. The Srimad Bhagavatam states in verse 11.14.23, there is no hope for purification of one's heart until one's devotion ripens to create joy in every pore of the body. The chitta melts and is overcome with joy, and tears of bliss roll down the eyes. Adi Sakaranacharya has also accepted this in the Prabodh Sudakar, verse 167. Without having tasted the nectar of devotion to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the Antakaran heart can never be purified. As above, there are thousands of verses in the scriptures stating that God realization requires bhakti, but for the purpose of explaining the mantra, let these suffice here. Nevertheless, the point conclusively proved on the basis of the scriptures is that paradharma, satya dharma, is selfless, uninterrupted devotion to the supreme divine personality. Having expressed the desire to see the personal form of God, the devotee's yearning for darshan grows. So in the next mantra, he repeats the prayer with greater intensity for a vision of the supreme divine personality. Mantra 16. I'm going to wrap it up here, though. Let me show you. Just recently got this of Vishnu statue. Very, very incredible.